say, I watched your movie last night, and I had such an amazing experience watching it. You know, it creeps up on you, this film, doesn't it? I mean, it has a lingering effect, because it's not it's so very, a lot of it is very subliminal, very incredibly subtle, but it has this amazing lingering effect. And of course the film sort of, in its very what's the word, restrained way, develops to such a sort of powerful and cataclysmic and extraordinary climax, obviously with the development of that relationship. And Kate, I was just saying before you came on, with Francis, that I was absolutely convinced that Francis had to be a woman. Of course, he's got the name that could be a man or a woman. So I wasn't aware, to my ignorance, I hadn't seen his first film. But from the very first shot of the woman scrubbing the floor and the man's voice saying, "Get out of the way," my immediate thought, only a woman could have done that. And then as we progressed through the movie and I'm watching it, almost, you know, very often I'm thinking, oh God, only a woman would understand that. So I have to put that to you, Francis, and you know, I hope that's not an insult to you in the sense that it's sexist or whatever, but I thought it had such an amazing sensibility. I suspect, and maybe Kate, you can fill this in, that maybe this came from your two brilliant actresses as well, contributing their understandings and ideas. Tell me about that.
Yeah, thank you, Helen, and thank you for the compliment. I take it as a huge compliment. You thought I was a woman. Yeah, no, that's really wonderful. Thank you. I think that it was incredibly important to me when writing this film and directing this film, that what I did was respect these women and elevate them in every possible way I could, and create, with Kate and Saoirse, three-dimensional people who in their lifetimes were overlooked, were put down, their work was reappropriated by men. You know, they lived in this incredibly strong patriarchal, class-ridden society. And I very much wanted to do everything I could to elevate them to possibly the status they should have had when they were alive. And it really pleases me that you thought I was a woman. So thank you.
And tell me,
it pleases me too. I mean, I just to add there, like, it's so wonderful that you thought that, Helen, because one of the things that I felt working with Francis was that he felt very quickly like a great girlfriend. Actually, it felt like working with a girlfriend, and I think that was simply because he had such profound understanding, as he just described, of these two women, but in particular of Mary. I actually met Francis for the first time after reading the script and thought, oh, you are Mary a bit, actually. There's something about Francis's heritage, but no, it's you know, your honoring of your own working class roots, Francis, I do think is something that is infused throughout your work. And I knew that I was going to need that partnership, that friendship, and that sort of hand at my back, because it was it was a daunting prospect to play someone who said very little and emoted enormous amounts internally, and yet showed that very sparsely on the outside. And so I was thrilled to discover the sort of very feminine, emotional sensibility that Francis himself carried, and a remarkable understanding and empathy for Mary Anning in particular.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say, Kate, you know, I thought you were absolutely remarkable in this film. I mean, the two of you are fantastic, but the way.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much.
but the way in which you do absolutely nothing and yet are doing so much. It's like it's perfect film acting, if you like. It's what film acting is all about. And when people imagine that film acting is about doing nothing, they are so wrong, because film acting is all about doing an enormous amount within a very, very it can be within a very restricted or uh, picture. And I, you know, without your expression changing, you absolutely understand what's, you know, the depth of this woman's passion, the depth of her desire, of her confusion, of her resistance to that, her strength of character and independence. It's a really extraordinary performance, and I cannot congratulate you enough for it. I think it's incredible.
Oh, well,
And
help.
having
I
said
mean,
that,
that really means a great deal. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
having
Thank
said
you.
that, it's interesting, Francis, that yes, I think Kate's absolutely right. Your Yorkshire background, which I read just you know, last night after I watched the movie, and I thought, Francis Lee, I must look her up, you know, and then your bearded face came up on the screen. I went, what? You're joking. But and then I read about you and your Yorkshire background, and because one of the earliest impressions of the film is of the physicality of it, the coldness, the wind, you know, the sea, the stones on the beach, that sort of rather harsh, unromantic look at what Britain can be. And you really viscerally feel, you know, that climate, and when she's climbing up that mud, you know, that black mud that she's dealing with, you really feel that. So I congratulate you on bringing those sort of physical feelings so strongly to the screen. You shot it in lime, as I understand.
Yes, yeah. So
Yes,
so Mary
Was
Anning,
that a
who the
nice,
film
was
is
that a
loosely
great
based on.
experience? Did you love that? Was that?
It was fantastic to be in the actual locations where Mary worked and lived. And what was wonderful about that was that, you know, Kate and I worked for months and months and months before the shoot, building the character of Mary together from scratch, from the moment she was born right up until the moment we first see her on screen. And we discovered every little nuance about her, creating, if you like, our Mary as we saw her. And then as part of that process, which was just fantastic, because I'm very obsessed by landscape and how the landscape affects the people who live and work in it. Kate went out for weeks fossiling on those beaches in Lyme Regis where Mary actually fossiled. And she worked with a wonderful fossil expert called Paddy Howe, and would be out there for hours and hours and hours, getting cold and wet and tired and a bit fed up sometimes, but also becoming incredibly skilled at finding fossils and developing her own knowledge. And what was so wonderful about that is that we were able to take forward that physicality that Kate was developing, you know, getting used to those muscles aching, getting used to climbing up those banks of mud. You know, there were no stunt doubles or hand doubles. That's all Kate Winslet. And really embodying Mary, both physically and emotionally. And I think that you know, I'm a huge fan of transformative actors, and to be able to be part of that with somebody who totally transformed themselves, both physically and emotionally, into somebody else was such a fantastic experience. And one day, one day I was on set and I was so used to seeing Kate as Mary. I didn't see Kate when she was out of costume or makeup or hair. And one day I was on set and it was one of those rare occasions where Kate wasn't in the scene. And there was somebody walking around the set and I could see them out of the corner of my eye. And I said to the first assistant director, "Who's that on my set? Who is it?" And he looked over and he went, "That's Kate." And I just didn't recognize her at all, because I'd become so used to this other person that Kate had created. And it's all, you know, it's all down to that very meticulous detail and that great research that went on. You know, Kate did classes in drawing because, you know, she's not a great drawer. And so,
No, I'm not.
and so,
no, I mean,
so,
absolutely.
You know, she did classes in
that. All of that is so. I mean, I'm not saying it's clear in the sense you go, oh, this actress has, you know, done all of this, but for me, it was obviously the emotional side of the acting, but as you say, the physical side of the walk. You know, just the walk, the shoulders. You know, the hands, the arms. It was. It absolutely was so utterly believable. You know, we know, obviously we all know Kate, I'm sorry to talk about you like this, but, you know, as this very beautiful and, you know, sometimes unbelievably glamorous sort of movie star person. But of course we know the real Kate, I do anyway, which is this very, very concentrated, dedicated, and profoundly intelligent actress, and we see the results of that on the screen. I also want to say and give great credit to the hair and makeup team, and indeed the costume and production design, because I felt all of that. As an actress, I'm very aware of hair and makeup, you know, and I know how difficult the sort of so-called no makeup look is. But the makeup, the hair was so believable, so absolutely accurate. It's the first film I think I've seen, period film, where I utterly believed, you know, the hair, it wasn't overdone, it looked real, it looked like the photographs that you see, which is so rare in period movies. So they just look too done up, you know, very often. So I really want to give credit. I saw Ivana, who I've worked with, did the hair and makeup, and it was brilliantly, beautifully done.
Yeah, so Ivana Primorac, who designed the hair and makeup on Ammonite and also worked on The Reader, which is how I met her, and I've known her since then. She and I and Michael O'Connor, our costume designer, we all really worked together to help me to disappear, because the thing is, you know, I like you, Helen, absolutely love this job and want and hope to always be doing it. But in order to achieve that, I have to be challenged, I think, all the time. And that challenge only gets more and more as people become familiar with who you are as a person and what you sound like and how you physically move when you walk onto a red carpet, etc., etc. And so the physicality of Mary was something that I focused on an enormous amount. And when I did go out on those beaches and work with Paddy Howe, our paleontologist down there, I actually wore my costume shoes, because it was so important to me to understand how that would affect not only my gait, but the level of physical exhaustion that actually penetrated into my bones. And when that gets in with the cold, it totally transforms everything about how you hold yourself. And I sort of feel like I forgot how to stand up truly straight, you know, just that thing of opening your sort of heart and shoulders back and just being present. Mary wasn't that. Her shoulders were here. Her body posture was totally different, because she was keeping herself inside, because that was how she felt safest, and that was how she lived her life emotionally, because isolation and social distance was something that was very comfortable for Mary, and she preferred to live that way because she was socially awkward and lived a hard life and had a fractious relationship with her mother, who had lost so many children, and so couldn't probably really love Mary properly when Mary was a little girl, and Mary lost her own father when she was 11 years old, and so she had lots of abandonment issues, Mary, and I
Mm.
think emotionally she had some serious gaps, and as a result didn't know how to love or how to be loved. And
Mm.
so, for example, that scene when they go to the music recital and she is envious of Elizabeth, who sits next to Charlotte.
Oh, so
Francis and
jealous.
I,
Oh,
we
you feel it. Oh.
so jealous. But poor little Mary, you know, it's she had no concept that it's okay to just talk to another person, and that it doesn't
No,
mean that you have to
absolutely.
have your heart broken and retreat to a place of extreme loneliness. But so these were the emotional bumps in the road that I had to figure out ways of sometimes playing with the back of my head or the backs of my
Mm.
hands. And it was
Mm.
really alarming to realize that I didn't initially know how to do that, and I was very afraid of, of everything I did. I mean, I would go home every day after shooting, and I would sit at the kitchen table by myself, because I lived alone and separate to my family when I was making it. And I think, well, I don't even know if I did anything that anyone would have even seen today. I mean, was I even acting? I mean, this is just rubbish. I mean, this is just, well, anyone can do that. I mean, why did he ask me to do this? And I would have these conversations with myself and the wall,
Well, it's, yeah,
over
well,
and over.
when you're, well, you know, when you're working in that way with that sort of character, it's true that those feelings of, am I communicating? You know, is it coming across? And yet it so powerfully was. Um, and also I loved, Francis, that the fact that you didn't feel the need, and I love this in the script, that there was no, you know, heavy explanation. You know, when Saoirse arrives on screen and she's in black and she's just haunted, there's no explanation of why that is. And likewise, the relationship with the Fiona Shaw character, you know, you get the sense, the whiff of the sense of something has happened. You're not quite sure what it is. I love, and as it reveals, you sort of begin to understand. In that lovely little moment that you have with Saoirse with the baby, that just such a delicate little indication of what her tragedy is. I love the fact you didn't, in the script, feel you had to sort of explain everything, you know, to the audience. I thought that was absolutely
Yeah, I
wonderful.
think, thank you. I think, you know, honestly, I am a huge, the reason I love cinema is because it's a visual medium, and I love to tell stories with pictures. And if I can tell a story with a picture rather than a line of dialogue, that's what I will try and do. And when you're working, you know, I've been so blessed to work with brilliant actors who can convey story, emotion, intensity without lines of expositional dialogue. It's just a joy, you know, to be able to play that out in such a visual way. Yeah, I find that kind of cinema really exciting.
Well, it's a
And
brave
you know, I will say,
screenwriter.
sorry, I was just gonna to add to your observation, Helen, about the film and its sparsity in terms of explanation. And it was one of the things when I first read the script that I just thought was absolutely brilliant, because it takes a serious visionary and huge amounts of courage to be prepared to tell a story in that way. But
Mm.
Francis, do you remember how actually there were moments when you would panic and think, oh shit, should we, maybe it's not enough, and perhaps so and so says we need to explain this more and that more, and I would say to you, just stop it. You wrote this the way that I read it, and we're going to bloody well do it like that. And so, sticking to your guns. Do you remember there was a little bit of a moment where
Yeah,
there are a couple of wobbles, because it takes huge guts to just go,
Takes courage.
no, actually, I'm going
I
to
was
carry
just
on.
going to say,
It
yeah, I was just going to say exactly that, Kate. You know, it takes great courage as a filmmaker to do that. Great great trust in the power of film, and I do believe in the power of film. And I personally, I'm often saying, I don't need to say all this. I really don't. You know, you can do all of this with a look, or with a, you know, with a movement, or a particular kind of silence. So, but you know, it does take great courage, both in the director and the producers sometimes, you know, to hold the faith and say, no,
Yeah, it does.
You don't have,
It,
yeah.
it, yeah, it does. And I felt that, I think that's, Francis, one of the moments where you and I were really able to kind of connect is when I was able to say to you, listen, just, this might only be your second film, but your formula is working because I've seen your first film. So let's just carry on and be brave. And
Yes.
actually it was lovely, because I think through those conversations, even in rehearsal, Francis, we were able to establish a real sense of like just slightly being, you know, in our own little corner in a way, which sometimes you do
Well,
have to
yeah, I
be if
mean,
you're trying to tell a story in a quiet way.
exactly. And what was
Yes.
so, you know, what was really, really lovely was that, you know, that connection to both Kate and Saoirse and all the actors, and how we worked as a team together and made our film in the way in which we wanted to make it. And the support was really wonderful.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. And instantly, speaking of the team, and I've already mentioned Ivana's work, and the beautiful cinematography, which is extraordinary, and the production design, which was absolutely immaculate and totally believable, and not so easy to do. It looks like it's easy to do a period film and believe in it. It's really, really difficult. The recreation of London, I absolutely loved. Just my own curiosity, did you shoot that in Wapping? Because I live in Wapping when I live in London. So did
No.
you shoot that in
Where
Wapping?
were we? No, we were like just off Great
No, we
Portland Street for that
we
house,
were
weren't we?
no,
On the
no,
big
no.
house, but
You
when
mean
she
for the
first
Thames?
arrives by the boat, yeah, on the boat
No,
by the
that
Thames.
was no, that yeah, that was I can't
You
even
forgot.
remember.
I can't believe it.
I can't remember. It wasn't Wapping, but it was the outskirts of London. It was a huge dockyards on the outskirts of
Yeah.
London. Some of it was disused. I don't think it was Wapping though, Helen. We'll get back to you on
Well,
that.
it looked like Wapping, and it would have been Wapping. So, so I thought that London was absolutely brilliantly recreated by the production design team. And the other thing, Francis, I loved was the soundscape, and your absolutely minimal
Yeah.
use of music. And I love that. I mean, it's one of my big bugbears, that sometimes there's just too much music in a film. You know, leading the audience emotionally the way they're supposed to be going. You know, here you didn't do that. You totally trusted your actors, and the whole beautiful filmmakingness of it to take the audience emotionally where you needed them to go with that. Absolutely minimal use of music, but also wonderful use of sound. And I thought the soundscape in general
Yes.
was wonderful, from the clocks, you know. One of the moments when she goes into the big house in London, and you just hear the clocks ticking very quietly in the background. There's the clocks ticking. You know, you're in a different world from her world back in Lyme, her you know, little cottage that she lives in. So I thought the soundscape was
Yes.
really beautifully done.
Thank you. I'm very, very obsessed with sound. And I
Are
was very
you? That's
blessed on this film to
interesting.
work with Johnny.
Yeah.
Yes, with Johnny Byrne, who's a wonderful sound designer. And I think that sound tells the story just as much as pictures. And so we work very, very hard on it. And I do this very specific thing where Johnny will go out with his team, record hours and hours and hours of atmospheres and winds and bird songs. And then when we start to edit the film, we also start to work with the sound. And we strip off all the sound that we've recorded when we're making the film. And then we rebuild it with our library of sounds, so we can orchestrate every single wind. We can place every single bird song for meaning and layering. We literally mine it to in such detail that every single sound element is there to underpin and layer the emotion of what you're seeing on screen. It's a Herculean task, but I really love it.
Herculean, but beautifully executed. And what it does is it makes the structure. It gives the real world, you know, that it gives the world within which these characters are living and, you know, living their story. It gives it a structure and a reality and a truth. It can be overdone, as you know, big clonking noises of people's feet, you know, going across but when it's beautifully done, it just gives this, it just adds to the absolute sense of authenticity and reality that you're watching. So I would really congratulate you on that. And also the other thing you were saying about the team, and I noticed in the notes, I went through the credits, you know, and I'm always looking for women's names in the credits, because my big bugbear at the moment is bringing women into behind the camera as much as possible. And Kate, you're much younger than I am, but you know, so much of my life I've walked onto a set and it's been 98% male. You know, maybe a female script,
I mean, I think,
and maybe a female costume.
We had a lot of women,
and I noticed there were a lot of women's names.
We did. We had an almost entirely female camera crew, with the exception of Stefan Fontaine, our cinematographer.
Yeah.
And actually, when it came to shooting the more intimate scenes, I noticed there's a scene that takes place, an intimate scene in the shop, and I had noticed that we didn't have a female boom operator in our sound department, and I said to our first AD, so we need to make sure that we have a female boom op when we're doing the intimate scenes. And he said, yes, absolutely. And then he put it to the back of his mind, meaning to get around to it, and then he actually forgot. And he came to me on that day and he said, Kate, I am so sorry, I completely forgot about that request. Are you okay with, you're just okay if Lewis is the boom op? And I said, no, absolutely not. I said, absolutely not. I'm sorry. He said, he'll turn away. I said, I don't care. We're not having a man in the room when we're shooting. We absolutely just can't, because it changes the atmosphere and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. And I felt quite protective of Saoirse. She was completely fine, by the way, but I felt a little bit protective of her because she is younger than me, and I have been the age that she was on sets and wished that I'd had someone change things for me. And so I felt that sense of duty, really. And then what ended up happening was our third AD, who was a lovely girl from Wales named Lucy. I turned to her and I said, Lucy, you're going to have to operate the boom today. And she said, I can't. I slammed my hand in a car door and it's really hurting. And I took some cocodamol. It's made me go mental. I'm dizzy and everything. No. And I was like, get up on that chair and hold the boom. And so we had this wonderful third AD with a broken hand, poor thing, on his chair, and she kept looking at me. I mean, it then ended up being brilliant because for hours, and then between takes I'm looking at her going, are you okay, is your hand all right? She's like, I'm fine, just get on with it. It was very funny. And then so when it came to shooting it was perfect. So when we came round to shooting our
for kind of getting on with it, isn't it?
It really was. And you know, that's the beauty of film, but it's also the beauty of low budget film, which this one was. We made it with very little money, is that you just have to muck in, and it's where some of the greatest creative moments happen and some of the best friendships and memories are made. And so when it came to shooting our very intimate scene, they had hired a female boom operator for that day, and it was wonderful. And she arrived, she was 6.5 months pregnant with a girl. So we had this great female energy in the room, and
orientated.
it was just magic. It really was absolutely magic, and we were lucky, weren't we, Francis, with our great girls we had. Yes. Oh, good. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
For me, it's one of the great sex scenes ever, actually, because it's so obviously very passionate, absolutely believable. You know, the flush in the faces, the look of it. I thought it was extraordinary, and you know, as I say, it is in a sense, and of course it'll be what everybody wants to talk about. But it from going from that, the coldness of the beach and the mud and the ocean and the freezingness of all of that, into this extraordinary climactic moment. It's very, very beautiful, and I think it will be a famous moment in cinema history. I thought it was incredible.
Well, I think you know, thank you, Helen. I think, you know, for all of us, it's coming back to what Kate was saying earlier, that with, you know, with Mary particularly, she was unable, or the way in which we saw her, she was unable to articulate how she felt. So again, it was looking for physical, visual storytelling to tell us where she was at, where she's at emotionally. How does the story move on with this scene? And I think that, you know, we communicate so much without verbal language, that it's so, again, so great to be able to put that on screen, to use that for storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah, and for
Yes,
me,
well,
that love scene between Saoirse and I, for me, I feel tremendously proud of it, because it is everything that those characters are experiencing in that moment in time, and it's also a moment where Mary is allowing herself to be truly loved and emotionally absolutely undone, and it was important that we made it intense and passionate and connected, so that we could convey those things that those two women feel for one another. And it was one of the most joyful, special experiences of my entire career, actually, filming that scene. I have to be honest, it was quite extraordinary.
well, it's you know, having done a couple of those things myself, your partner in that situation it's so important, isn't it? And you know, the moment the two are with,
Yes,
and your
absolutely.
third partner obviously is the director as well. There's three of you in it together, really, you know. So and the partnership between the three of you, it can make or break it so easily, so quickly. But it was spectacularly well done, really spectacularly well done.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, oh, a couple of things. I love the limerick. Francis, was that your limerick? I love the limerick. That was so brilliant, because
yes,
it's so.
I like it. I love a dirty
was it yours?
limerick.
Yes. Was it your
I love a
limerick,
dirty
or
limerick.
Kate? Kate, did you
No, it was Francis.
find that limerick?
That's yeah. Yeah. That was all
Yeah,
Francis.
my dirty limerick, I'll tell you. The only limerick I ever remember is: two dreary old ladies from, oh, I can't remember where they came from now. Fordham.
It's
Two
probably
dreary old ladies from Fordham. You know this one. Went
No,
out on a
go
walk
on.
till it bored 'em. On the way back, a sex maniac jumped out of the bushes and ignored 'em.
Oh my God.
That's my only limerick I know.
Oh, limericks, honestly.
The only one I remember. But yeah,
so
great
funny.
limerick. So that was one thing, was the limerick, and the other, and also it's just a lovely, surprising moment with that character, and it shows her underneath all of that. There's this wonderful also intelligence and sense of humor and earthiness, you know, that she has. which is
Yeah.
great. And the other,
I had to make the most of the very few moments I had to be able to sort of show that side of her,
yeah,
and I had to,
absolutely,
I had
absolutely,
to earn them
and
all.
because of
It
that,
was
yes, it
God.
really. And a weird little thing, but the color of the door, I love the color of the door at the when she's arriving in London. And I wondered whether that was accidental or was that a deliberate production design choice. You're shaking your
Yeah,
head.
Nothing
so
accidental.
all
There's nothing accidental about anything that Francis
I'm
Lee
happy to hear that.
no,
Tell me about
so all the doors in the entire film are color coded for meaning about who lives there or what they represent to Mary. So the doors were all repainted in terms of the colors that meant something.
I love that. That's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. I can't tell you, because it was very beautiful, and very unexpected. The sort of slightly purpley lilac dark. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful color, and it also was very beautiful on the screen. And there's a wonderful moment as well in the museum, when she's walking in, and I love that shot, walking past all those portraits of men, you know, endless portraits of men. There's this one little woman in her bonnet walking past them, and then she comes to a halt and stops, and there's a portrait behind her, and her head just fills in the man's portrait,
fills
and
in
the
the
frame is
space of the
around
man.
her,
Yeah,
so it
it's
becomes a portrait of her,
fantastic.
which is really a lovely, lovely moment. So subtle, and yet you know, full of meaning for people like me, you know, who've spent a whole fucking lifetime, you know, looking at portraits of men and wondering where the fuck the women are.
Yeah.
So
So,
that was a lovely moment.
yeah, it was a very important moment.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, thank you guys. You know, it's, as I said, it's a fantastic film that stays with you, and I suspect it's like one of those, I can't think what an equivalent will be, but something that grows in you as you know, as time goes on from when you've watched it initially. It will sort of grow with you. So many congratulations on everyone involved, all through the team. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful
Thank you,
thing.
Helen.
So well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you very much,
doing this
Helen.
for us.
Good luck
And
with
thank
it
you,
all.
everybody,
Yeah.
for wanting to listen to us talk about our film for far too long. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.